Lots of groups have talked today. You've heard the word certification a lot today. So this is the working group that's working on that. So unlike the other working groups that have come up here today and talked, this group is working with all of those groups. It interacts with them all in different types of ways, and we're trying to figure out how to certify the content that they're putting out. So I thought here, we're pretty new compared to some of these other working groups that have been around for a while and are working on issues. We started in April. So we've got a newer stuff. We've done a lot of stuff, but I thought I'd put the charter up here so everyone knows. There's a couple things I want to call out here. One of them is we're enabling self-testing. So when we talk about certification here, we're not thinking lab infrastructure or giant, making it difficult. The idea here is that anybody can grab the tools, run the testing themselves, and be able to do that. So that's kind of one of the areas we're aiming for that's important. So far this year, like I said, we formed in April. The certification program guide is the first thing we made, and that's wrapping up. It's almost finished. I think on Monday we're going to have our meeting to finish that. That's really a rules of the road. It talks about, if you're trying to get a certification, what you should do. It talks about what people who want to require certifications, because they're very different users of the certification, as we like to say. That covers both of those. So we're going through all of those. We got a set of business requirements from the PSC, things that people wanted to see in the certification. So we made sure the program guide covers all of those things. We talk about life cycles. All the boring stuff is in that program guide. The fun stuff is what's going to happen next year. But we wrote down all the rules so that people can kind of understand what's going on, where we're headed with the certifications. Oops. So what's in the guide? Users, requesters. I jump to the next slide. Certification requirements. Program life cycles. Self-certification, we talk about the review process a lot. This is because you have to send the results. Someone independently has to look at them. It's a slight, we had to figure all of that out as part of the process. It's a small price to pay instead of having a lab infrastructure. Having worked at a lab once upon a time, lab infrastructures definitely have their place. It's just, in this case, we think it's better to have tools out there that people can get their hands on and test, because it's such a diverse community, as you've heard today. There's ODMs, SOC vendors, operators. There's lots of different people who want to test these components in different ways. When you're talking microservices, it even gets even more complicated. So self-testing was what we decided, and so all of that's documented in there if you want to read it. Okay, so these are the areas that we are aiming for certification in this order upcoming. So we're just starting and talking about prpl OS and the high-level API. They're the furthest along in their request in where they are. So we're going to start just writing down the individual test content that people need to actually do, the nitty-gritty. So if you're into that, we meet on Mondays. It's all posted available on the Confluence page. You can see the links. Please join us if you're interested in these types of things. But that's going to be the first one we do. Then we're going to move to low-level API. They're not definitely, this kind of indicates that they're serial. They're really not. We're going to be working on them all at the same time. And they're obviously, when we start offering prpl OS cert, doesn't mean that it's done and we won't be continuing to add things to it. We'll be doing that. But I think this is really the order that we expect them to be available. Then the low-level API we expect to do, and then LCM will be the last one as these things go along. Yeah, so how do you get involved? This is one of those things. If you're a user, we want you to come and talk about what things you think are really important, that you want to make sure work. If you're an operator, if you're somebody who is consuming prpl components in some way, we'd love for you to come and talk to us about that, what you're doing. Requesters, we want you there. Certification requesters we define as someone who's trying to get the certification for their component. So if it's a low-level API, someone building that component or building the high-level API that you guys just talked about, right? We want you to come for the other side of this, being how do we verify this? What is the best way for us to figure out how to test and make sure that you guys are doing the right thing? So this is really just a call for people. We're just getting into this, so this is a call for the technical nerds to come hang out and talk about how we're going to test some of these things. That's it for me.